Hello, welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get anything, we got a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. It's just a fun little conversation between Nathan and myself where we play a couple of fun games, having a good time, having some laughs, just
Hmm.
something extra for you patrons out there. And we just want to let us know what you think. What kind of extra content would you like to see out of that? But
Yeah,
if you choose not to support it, do not worry because it doesn't affect your regular content. But today on Thursday, continuing Bondzilla, it's going to be our Godzilla movie of the week, and it is 1973's Godzilla versus Megalon, directed by returning director Jun Fukuda. And
nice.
yeah, it is a continuation of Jun Fukuda's directorial lineage in the Godzilla series. The original idea that I kind of spoke about in the Gigan episode, where they're kind of toying with the idea of Megalon coming in, and Megalon does make his first appearance as the main antagonist, main kaiju in here, and we get a returning Gigan as well.
Hmm.
But Nathan, if anything is like in terms of silliness or campiness about the series, I can't think of another movie in the series where it's just like the camp is just way, way up.
It's oh yeah, it's crazy. You thought like the smog monster one had like its camp moments. This one is this one had me laughing. This one it's so weird. This one is I probably thought about more after watching it than most other Godzilla movies. Just certain moments keep popping into my head after watching it. Because
Yeah,
I love camp. We love camp here.
yes, absolutely. I mean, I really this one, like, I never owned it on VHS, so I never got to really watch this one. So uh I didn't really get to see this as part of my childhood. And
Hmm.
honestly, I really wish I did see it because I can't imagine like how hyped I would have been watching this movie. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a kooky little movie. I mean, they make no bones about it. This is very much like a kids movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. This one especially. Like,
I mean, if you thought some of the plots before were like paper thin, this is about as lean as it gets for a story.
yes. It's so wild to me to hear that you didn't watch this one as a kid because I thought about this and I was like, oh, yeah, child Ryan probably love this one. Just like the setup and the way Godzilla, like, it's almost, like, we'll talk about it later, but it feels like a wrestling match at the end of the movie. And I was like, wow, no wonder Ryan liked this one. And you didn't even watch it.
No, and I didn't even watch it this week. I'm gonna lay the cards on the table. I love this one. I thought it was great. I thought it was
Mm.
fantastic. Honestly, it's like I think had I seen this movie before I saw Hidora or around the same time, I think
Mhm.
this one might have been like my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, and which is funny to say because literally like almost every piece of like criticism or like people talking about this movie, it everyone's like, oh yeah, it's like the worst or one of the worst Godzilla movies. And I'm like, I mean, I don't see that honestly. I mean, it's like we've watched almost all of them at this point. I'm like, there's no way this is the worst one.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I can see it. I totally can personally from my point of view because I did finish this movie and I really there are parts of this that I do think are a bit funky. Uh that I don't that are a bit odd. But I think when it comes down to camp and the Godzilla fight scenes themselves, those rock. Those are what keeps coming up. My actually view of this movie has gone up after watching it. It's like one of the have you ever had a movie you watch it and then you just think about it more and you come to like it the more you think about it?
Yeah, that was the same experience for me for one of the other movies we did, which was the Velvet Vampire,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was where I was like, I don't know if I like that at all. But then I kept thinking about it more and more, and that's like, let me rewatch this movie, and then I'm like, okay, I'm starting to like this more. But
Yeah. I really wish it was kind of a short week because I would have watched the American version. Who knows if that's any good, but I do want to go back to this one. But we'll get into maybe some of the things I didn't like the first time I watched it.
yeah, I watched it twice.
Yeah.
So I watched it once with as its own thing, and then I watched it again with the commentary.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so and that's if I do any sources, it's going to be from the Godzilla versus Megalon commentary, and it's going to be from the Big Action Bill video
Hmm.
that I watched as well. So anything, that's where I'm getting my sources from.
Gotcha. And I'm gonna bet you David Cowett doesn't like this one, does he?
No, he does not.
Okay. Yeah. Dang. Um, no, and I mean I will get it. Just to kind of say they use stock footage in this one. And if you watch all of these in a row, like we are, I knew exactly where this like I felt like some of the other ones hit it better. This one doesn't hide it as well. Like the part with the satellites and the lasers in the tree that we saw and before, which come to find out was a stock footage already from a movie we didn't see, the
Mm-hmm.
gargantuans, but still, like the film grain changed, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of rough.
Well, yeah, and there's stuff like they go for Godzilla movies where like the Godzilla suit is completely different. It's like not even close.
Yes.
It's like they'll show the one where it's Godzilla jumping into the water from Godzilla versus Ebirah, or like they show the
Hmm.
one where it's like Godzilla versus Gigan, where it has just like so just the suits kind of shift. So it's more akin to guess all monsters attack, I guess, in terms of like editing, but it's not
Mm.
that bad. At least it's like they
No.
at least try to blend it into something new. But in my opinion, I think there is enough new in this movie that it more than makes up for that.
Yeah, I will say when it comes to the fights where I think it is most important, I think there's enough new things in the fight sections to make it to make it work overall. Um,
Yeah, but
but
just to give just to give you an idea at the time of why they made those choices, it's
mm,
just um, the Japanese movie industry at this time was in pretty dire straits.
mm,
Like the studio Daiei, which we'll talk about a lot later, is the Gamera studio.
mm-hmm.
They went bankrupt during this time,
Damn.
and all these other really famous movie studios were having to go bankrupt. We're not making near as much. Even Toho at the time, just to give you an idea of what the dire financial situations they were in, is that at one point they had something like 200 contracted actors for Toho. At this point, there was 11.
No way. No
Yeah.
way. That's insane.
Um, Compare this to what they were doing like 10 years before. They were producing around 70-ish movies a year.
Hmm.
They were down to about 30 about this year. So
God. And it's TV, right? That's the big thing.
TV is a big killer at this point. So I mean, right now, like audiences are just like watching all this stuff at home. It's things like Ultraman and Zone Fighter, like these giant kaiju shows that they can shoot real cheap. They can watch it at home for free. And, like I said, Ultraman was getting to be really popular at this time. So that's when they were like, let's try to cash in on this.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because in America, isn't that what we like culturally? We were the movie studios were really scared that TV would overtake cinema, and that never really happened, but it did happen in Japan.
Yeah, Japan was very much hurting a lot of times in the 70s, and it was just very crushing. We're at the point where they were just like, can we even keep the lights on at the
Yeah.
end? And that's so I mean, like before, like Gigan, like I said, they used a lot of stock footage in Gigan too,
Mm.
and but it was such on a paper thin budget that pretty much any profit at the time was a good profit, and this one was no exception. They were just like they were given a task of when they were making this Godzilla movie is just to comb through as much usable stock footage that they can and just make a movie around that.
Hmm. Yeah, which is never a really good way to set up making a movie.
No, and
Yeah.
at this point, whatever creative juices are that are involved in Godzilla, it's more than dried up at this point. I mean,
Yes.
and I as much fun as I did have but this one it does show a lot that there's not a whole lot in terms of of like real creative ideas. Like even Sekazawa, we praised really heavily, his screenplay for Mothra.
Yes. Yeah.
We were talking about like, oh Mothra, that's like that was such a great movie. It's basically like the Toho's version of like a Disney film or something
Hmm.
like that. And the other big thing too was the and then the other, or like the other instance would be like Godzilla versus Ebirah, where the Ebirah like human plot line is so good that you could take Godzilla out of it and you'd still have a pretty decent movie there.
Yeah,
And like this one, it's like if you take Godzilla out of Godzilla versus Megalon, there's almost no
there
movie.
would be no movie. Yeah, that was that. I think that was the big thing. I mean, just the human plot in this. We've come such a long way. There is almost no human plot whatsoever. There are human characters. Things happen with them, but I don't. Right now, I couldn't even think about a character trait or like any of their plot or names. Really, they kind of there's only one major thing that I can remember, but we'll talk about that once we get into the movie.
The humans in this one, I mean, they are such a non-factor in this one. It's like it's crazy because they didn't. I mean, they mentioned this in the commentary and the doc, and the video I watched. But even watching it, it's like so weird. Like they go into like the town and there's like zero people in town,
Yeah,
and like you see almost nobody there. I mean, you could count every single person that speaks in this movie probably on like both like all 10 fingers. You could do that. And also too, I don't think there's not one woman that speaks in this movie.
I don't think so. No, not at all. Which I don't think that's ever been a thing, right?
No, this is I thought about that. I'm like, this is the first Godzilla movie that does not have a female character or even like a female speaking part at this point, because the only two females that are seen are these dancers in these really strange outfits, and
That's
then
right.
like this other woman that just stares at the screen.
Yeah, they obviously it's definitely the last thing they could think of. They
So
found like this footage and then built off of it, and they really didn't think hard when they built off of it.
yeah, and it's very clear to see that not many people care. I mean, Jun Fukuda at the time, I mean, he did not like making the Godzilla movies, and he's very hypercritical of himself. Like they were talking in the commentary about how Stuart Galbraith actually got the chance to interview Jun Fukuda, and like he had to pretty much like coerce him to uh, do the interview, because he's just like, all my movies are garbage. Like, why would you even want to talk about this? And
Damn.
he had to like basically talk him off the ledge, be like, no, they're all good. Like, they're great. Like, I love watching them. And
I'm
um,
watching it right now.
probably. And, and then he begrudgingly was just like, well, I guess some people like them. And
Mhm.
uh, one story I wanted to share, which I heard in the commentary, which was really nice, is that the apparently like he did like get his phone number and they were still talking, and then he called him one time, and he had just had open heart surgery, and he
Mm.
sounded really weak on the phone. So Stewart actually got like a bunch of fans like send him like letters, like get well soon things,
Mm.
and like letting him know about how much these movies mean to him. And he said he was obviously very moved and just shocked at like how many people like actually like cared about the movie. Because that's the other thing too, like this movie is, which I'll talk about later, like in Japan, like this movie got almost like no press, like not many
Wild.
people even paid much attention to it. Like they even said like the guy that plays the scientist brother in this movie, he said like while this movie was going, like during the time the movie was out, like nobody gave him an interview, like nobody asked him about this movie at
Oh
all.
my God. No,
So
that's rough. Like I couldn't even imagine. Like usually, no matter how crappy the movie is, how much like a major studio doesn't care about it, you're gonna get something. They're gonna get something for you.
yeah, well, this movie, like I said, was just so cheap. They probably like they didn't want to spend any money on promotional material at all.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So
can see that.
so yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. And like the whole point is just make a movie so you can create all these new action figures. And there's at least two new action figures that you can add to your collection from this movie.
Was one of them the watercraft the kid is driving at the beginning of the movie?
Oh, you like that, the little dolphin boat?
Yeah, I loved it. That was what a weird way to start the movie. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a dolphin in the middle, and then both sides of them are two smaller dolphins that paddle in the water, and this kid is riding it in just the middle of the lake. It is the weirdest like thing I've seen in one of these movies.
Everyone always brings up that scene. They're just like, what is that boat he's riding?
I love it. I love it.
Such a funny opening to this
Mhm.
movie. And getting into it, like I said, they that there's a big hole, all these fissures that are opening around because in the beginning of the movie there was these explosions
Oh
on
yeah.
the monster island, and Godzilla's there. He's it's like what the hell type of thing, and
Hmm.
you
But
get to see
yeah,
Anguirus,
yeah, Angrist just he's there for a second and he's gone.
and then he falls into an abyss.
Yep. And to never be seen again.
Well,
I know, I'm
till
just kidding. All right.
till the next movie, but
So he just fell, he fell to the other side of the earth and then he just swam back over.
he just tripped.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Honestly, that would make sense. That would be on character. But,
But no, yeah, so there's some type of explosion going on,
mhm.
and they and then what this one, it just and then just immediately takes like a hard right turn in this movie, like in terms of the plot, because
Mhm.
they it turns out underground there is a underground civilization of sea
Mhm.
people that once lived on this continent that sank to the ocean.
Mhm.
And the way they've survived this whole time is they've gotten they've gotten a giant air bubble trapped around their continent, and then they've been living in there with artificial sunlight.
Yeah, it's that easy. I wish we would solve our issues, our climate issues, by doing this. It's definitely doable, but no, it takes this left-hand turn. It's so silly. And I watched this after I watched The Spy Who Loved Me. It's like, oh, of course, we got another underwater plot here. I wish.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's funny, like we usually that how these movies, like there's usually at least one similarity between Bond and the Godzilla movie that we do.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, there's even earlier Bond movies that just like feel like a Bond movie. They kind of play off of it. I mean, this one takes a more harder sci-fi route to it because, of course, they can call upon a beetle, giant beetle-like monster named Megalon, which I don't think Bond ever fought Megalon, unless I'm mistaken. I haven't seen them all.
But yeah, classic rogue gallery. It's Megalon.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
uh, no, they open up with that, and you
Mhm.
see that, and just so like I said, it's probably like one of the more impressive sets,
I
honestly.
agree.
Like in like a Godzilla movie where it's just like this entire shrine or like underground looking city. It's like these women
Mhm.
with what would you just say, like the like weird shark fin looking things on their head?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's what I would say. It's definitely a unique look. I do like them all. I really like the main dude. I think he's got a cool, unique like look to him, just himself. But
Robert Dunham is his
Robert
name,
Donham, yeah.
and it's he's an interesting guy, like even in by
Mhm.
himself, because he has been in some of these movies that we've talked about before. He was like a police sergeant in the Mothra movies.
Mhm.
He's been in other kaiju movies. He was like in that like weird group of people that we mentioned before, where I told you about, where it's like these group of foreigners that just live in Japan and they just get cast in like all these Japanese movies as Americans. He was one of those types of guys.
Gotcha.
And
Like, oh, we just need a white dude. Let's get him in here.
pretty much, but he did actually speak fluent Japanese as well, but they still dubbed him over.
That that's humiliating. Imagine working so hard to learn a second language just for them to dub you over.
Yeah. And when they interviewed him about it, he's like made it very clear, like, that's not my voice. Like, do not say that's my voice. That is definitely not me speaking.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I could see that being really kind of humiliating in a way. But
Yeah.
I think he's pretty good. Um, he doesn't really do much, but
No, but it's just so weird. It's like a mustachioed, hairy guy with a giant tattoo on his arm.
yeah,
That's
you usually don't see that in these movies.
just like a we're like okay, it looks cool, but I don't get it. But
Yeah. Um, there's also like other villains, and one of them is there's another guy who's white, right, in the group. The one that kidnaps the little boy.
uh, well, he's half Swedish, half Japanese.
Oh, okay.
The guy with the beard, right? You're talking
Yes,
about
yes, yeah.
Wolf Oski or whatever.
Wolf Oski, sweet name.
Yeah,
Um, but okay, cool. I no, but there's like this whole plot line around them with the human characters. This is actually where Jet Jaguar kind of gets brought into the mix. They talk about a robot they've made, and yeah, we get introduced. I knew about Jet Jaguar before this movie. Big deal.
yeah. And the rumor at the time was is that like this was supposed to be like a Jet Jaguar movie, but they thought he
Still kind of
wasn't.
is.
But they thought he wasn't strong enough, which is why they put in Godzilla. But
Hmm.
that turned out to be, I think, pretty much debunked. Is that
Yeah.
it was very much supposed to be the two of them together. But the history of Jet Jaguar is very, very interesting to say the
Hmm.
least. It's um, so Toho, Subaraya Productions, the company that did like a bunch of those TV, like the Ultraman like shows, and the department store Seiyu teamed up, and they're like, "Hey kids, like send in your monster designs. Whoever has the best monster design, he's going to be put into a movie."
Hmm.
And so after getting all these submissions turned in, they finally got a submission, and they actually revealed it on a TV show. And the design they went with was done by a kid, and he called it. And there's some. It's called Red Alone,
Hmm. Red
and
alone.
yeah, and he it was like this bat looking. It's hard to describe on a podcast, but it's it's very much like it's like this white red design with like these giant bat wings and ears type
Hmm.
of thing, and that's the one that won. And but when they introduced the monster on stage, like in a full like costume, it didn't look anything like the kid drew. Like they had like all like a completely different color scheme. Like didn't look a thing like how it was. And you haven't seen it because I don't think the clip exists anymore. But it's like apparently the kid was so upset that he had to be like consoled on air.
Oh my god. I mean, I get it. That would be horrible. Like winning a contest, your creative vision, and then they just take it away from you like that. Horrible. Just
Well,
to do whatever they want.
and then the final result of what that monster turned into, which would eventually turn into Jet Jaguar, because at the time they were like, well, let's just make an Ultraman. Let's make our own Ultraman. So
Mm-hmm.
they made it just different enough to where it didn't look like him. And but if I showed you the first design for Jet Jaguar versus what he finally looked like in the movie, you would like, that's based off of that. Like, you wouldn't even think that was the same character. So you just imagine like the kid goes to the theater and it just doesn't even look like the monster you even started out as. Like, not even that second design that they came out with that there was like that upset him then. It's like even more so edited to look completely different.
That's funny. Man, they ruined that kid's life.
Yeah. Who knows? He's probably real mad up somewhere. He's
Oh,
just like,
I'm sure.
never watching a Godzilla movie again. Like, he's like in his 60s.
Yeah, and he's just like, if I catch my grandson watching Godzilla, I'm kicking him out. I'm never, he's done. I'm cutting him out of my life, cutting him out of my will. Um, it's
uh,
not like he's making money off of it.
but yeah, anyway, going back to the movie, I mean, they do have this robot, and this kind of first half of the movie, like the first 45 minutes. I mean, this is pretty much where the movie, as far as like this movie plot, like all happens. Like all the plot happens in this part, and then you don't. There's not. It's pretty much just all action towards the end because
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to get control of the robot, and they're wanting to take revenge on for them practicing nuclear experiments at the time, which was also based off of a real life event. There was a nuclear test in Alaska that was done that was protested by Greenpeace at the time, and they this was kind of like based on like because they were doing underground detonations, so they were just there. That was kind of like their idea of doing it and seeing what the after effects were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so many notable parts though in this scene, like afterwards. So like they get captured, they're put into a shipping container right away. Like I said, this is a children's movie, but there's a scene where there's like the getaway drivers and the one of the bad guys are in the cab of the truck, and it's like they have a bunch of naked women just
I
like
would,
plastered, like full on
yeah.
uncensored.
I was so surprised. It was so weird. It's like softcore, like full breasts and everything behind them, and I was like, what? Why is this air like in this chill? Because it is a children's movie, like then it's made for children. Just
It's very clearly a children, like children are
yeah.
supposed to see this movie.
But now this franchise has violence and sex in it.
Man,
Violence in
what's next?
movies, sex on TV. What?
uh, I
Where
don't
were those good old fashioned values? I'm so
I don't I
sorry.
don't I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, good. I'm glad you don't. But yeah, there's the part where they
I
like
do.
try to like, huh?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, thank you for that. A fellow Family Guy watcher.
Yeah.
But it gets pretty violent where they try to pull them or like dump them out of the shipping container and everything. Like there's some danger there.
Oh, like so they do release Megalon, and Megalon does go on, and honestly, probably like the other most impressive part of this movie, uh besides the set that I was mentioning before, for me at least, is the dam sequence that's there. Like they build an entire uh
Mhm.
scale model of a dam, and they actually have like Megalon in there crashing through it, and there's all this water flowing through. I was like,
It
well,
looked good.
that's real. Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a scene with like on the truck, the shipping container falls off of the truck, and Megalon just bats it out of the air, and it goes flying and hits to the ground. And I'm like, they mentioned it in the video too, but I even thought I was like, they would have been dead, like their bodies just smacking around, like they're
Yeah, no, it would be over for them. But in the Godzilla universe, that wouldn't happen.
no,
No,
never.
no.
Um, but and then the other notable scene is when they finally get back to the lab. Like the other bad guy that's there, he's like, uh, the kid throws a model airplane into the guy's face, and his face just like explodes with blood.
Yeah, absolutely insane. They who thought this was a good idea?
And like I just
Oh
imagine like
man.
these like little kids watching. I'm just like, this is like so violent already.
Yeah, yeah. I who knows? I maybe kids were cheering in the audience.
They probably were.
They
I would
probably
have been.
me too. But I'm sure some kid was scarred out there. But yeah, that happens. Jet Jaguar kind of like floats between like being a bad guy controlled by the bad guys and the good guys.
Well,
What do you,
no, yeah, he's full on controlled by the bad guys because they only have to tell him what to do, and Jet Jaguar is kind of leading the charge for Megalon, like showing Megalon where to go.
yes, yeah. And what do you think of Jet Jaguar's design? And to me, he kind of looks like an asshole. That's the only good way to put it. He looks like a jerk. I don't know, this giant
Uh,
grin on his face.
I like his face. It's so
Yeah.
unique looking. It's the body design is a little too kiddyish for me, but
Okay.
because I mean, it literally just looks like a box of crayons or whatever. Like you'd see like something like it reminds me of like an outfit you would see like in like a Spy Kids movie, like when they were drawing like those weird monsters or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's something I feel like I would see in that type of movie. But um, I I think Jack Jaguar looks good. I think he's a great looking character.
Okay, okay. Well, good thing because this is his movie. I will say that. I do think this movie is really focused on him.
Oh, I mean, if it's any secret that this is Godzilla is the sidekick for this movie.
Yeah, that was when I left it. That's one of those things. The movie even ends on a note of like this is Jet Jaguar's story. And there's another thing because Jet Jaguar ends up notifying Godzilla and asks him for help, and it takes Godzilla so long after being told what to do to actually get into the plot of the movie.
Well, he's got to swim. Jet Jaguar could fly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, I know that is what it is, but still,
But
but Godzilla is obviously taking his time because I do have this. When he walks in this is the part that plays in my head, and I love it.
I well,
Uh,
I wanted before you get into you're
okay,
talking about
okay,
because we're
yeah,
gonna get there. But I was gonna mention the other stuff before. So like
yeah,
when Jet Jaguar is controlling being controlled, I do like the little scene. It's just like a little miniature Jet Jaguar like flying, and then
yeah,
like this huge giant Megalon is like right behind him,
yes,
and
yeah,
uh, but they do eventually get control back of Jet Jaguar, and they're like, Jet Jaguar, go to Monster Island and tell Godzilla that something's up. And
yes, boss.
he's just like, "Durr, durr."
Yeah,
His roar actually sounds
thank
like
you.
that. And
Perfect.
but there's one intro for Godzilla coming up that I know you wanted to talk about, but the part that I wanted like his actual intro, which I thought was so funny because he when he appears, he's got his hands folded like underneath his chin, like just like that, like he's like studying a book or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just like that's so weird. And I'm just
No,
the
I
seeing Godzilla do that, but I thought that was so funny. Like I that's why I sent you that picture. I'm just like, oh my
yeah,
god.
no. I think that's what I keep thinking about this movie and why my enjoyment of it goes up is I really like Godzilla in this movie. He's a total character. I actually really love his suit in this one. I think his suit is pretty on point in this one, and I he's such a personality. I really like him in this movie.
People dog this suit a lot,
Really?
but yeah, they can say he looks too much like a dog and his eyes are too big.
Maybe that's why I like it. I don't know.
But he's just got such expressions on his face. Like
Mhm.
there's like scenes later where he does like an attack and it looks like he's literally smiling. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like
No, he looks like he's like full of emotion. You can tell when he's feeling something. It's
yeah. No,
funny.
no, that's good stuff. But yeah, he
Yeah.
warns Godzilla, and Godzilla, like I said, he's got his little paws like folded together,
Yeah.
and lets him know. And Jet Jaguar goes back, and
Hmm.
they the explanation they made. So the older brother, like he's the one that made Jet Jaguar, but I guess he didn't program Jet Jaguar to grow big because Jet Jaguar is a complete robot, so he does everything that he's told to, but because there's a giant monster, Jet Jaguar can all of a sudden become like this sentient being that like just has
Hmm.
free. This robot now has free will,
Hmm.
and he grows. And this is in David Callett's book and the commentary and Bay Action Bill is that they he grows by sheer determination.
Wow, what a legend. Yeah, why can't I do that?
You don't want it enough.
I guess so. I guess I gotta try. See, that's all the short people out there that want to be tall. You just gotta want it bad enough, and then you can get then you can grow
Yeah,
tall.
yeah. Don't let
Yeah.
that song "Short People Have No Reason to Live" affect you. But no, yeah, it's just funny like that. That's what they make up, and then Jet Jaguar, holds his own against Megalon. I mean, he doesn't need a whole lot of help, and
No.
uh,
He does get beat up towards the end though, once Gigan shows up.
so that's the other funny part is that Gigan shows up because this underwater
Mhm.
civilization supposedly knows how to contact evil alien
Yep.
monsters,
Secret
and that,
underwater knowledge.
yeah, and so Gigan's back, and told you he'd be back. He came back not too long afterwards.
Yeah, right after. It must have been the suit was there and ready.
No, that's actually a completely different suit.
Really? Okay. They just liked him then. Gigan shows up and then Chagmar ends up on the ground and they're beating the crap out of him as Godzilla is just slowly making his way over.
I do like it though. Like they're like Megalon would toss Jet Jaguar in the air, and you just hear like the beeping noise, like, and then like they just like smack them in the air while they're doing that.
Yeah, I really like that. And
Uh,
here's the moment that I was gonna bring up earlier is Godzilla strut in. It is so good because Jaguar is getting the crap beat out of him, but all Godzilla could do, it looks like he's hyping up the crowd, walking to like the ring. He's like raising his hands, dancing his way over very slowly. It's awesome. I love I love it.
he's like, yeah, he's doing his little boxer shuffle like he's done before, and like you said,
Yeah.
he's like, it's like a Rocky movie. He's just like woo, like getting like pump him up.
Godzilla's here as the match is going on.
And then then after he does that, he breaks into like kung fu poses. He's like, like, like,
So good. I love it. His fighting Godzilla more than ever. Like I think it was on the last one. No, he kind of got no, he got kind of got the crap beat out of him in the last one. So no, here he is the definitive does not get the crap beat out of him winner. Like he comes in and he does his kung fu moves and just destroys.
at no point did it ever seem like Godzilla was in danger. I mean,
No.
like Gigan, it's like if you were watching as a kid, you were probably like thinking Godzilla's about to die on screen, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but this one it's very clear like I think they toned down the violence just a tad, but they did reuse
Of
Godzilla's
course. Yeah.
arm getting like split open by Gigan, and then
Hmm.
they did reuse Godzilla getting knocked over and shooting Gigan out of the air with his atomic
Hmm.
breath. But so many like there's so many like little funny moments in this fight
Yeah.
that I like. There's a scene where Gigan has Jet Jaguar in like a headlock, and he's just pointing his hook like he's holding Jet Jaguar hostage for Godzilla. Like,
That is such a funny visual. Or Godzilla does his tail slide into a kick at the end of this fight, and he does it.
you got it. I was gonna hype that one up a lot more, but
Oh,
yeah,
go for it. No, hype it up even more because it rocks.
it's it this so the one with Hidora, where it was
Hmm.
um that was probably like a really infamous scene at the time.
Yes.
Like, Godzilla flying, literally flying in the sky. And then
Mm.
this one I think is the other one that I see so many gifts for. I mean,
Hmm.
it's Godzilla like commanding Jet Jaguar to hold that Megalon,
Hmm.
and Godzilla like stomps backwards like really fast, and he gets
Yeah.
a running start, and then slides on his tail. Like he is
Yeah.
in a T formation with his tail being at the bottom, with his feet
Yeah.
going forward, and then it's so funny. Like he hits he hits Megalon with his feet, and he's almost holding up his claws like the number two, like
I
number
know.
two,
I'm
like
going for round two because at
like
first I thought he was doing the peace sign, which I also thought was really weird. But no, he was saying number two.
and they redo the same part again. And it's just like it was
Yeah.
so good that like they knew they had to show it again.
Hey, I was for it.
Uh, Another scene too was I there like Megalon has like these grenade type of things that cause these explosions.
Mm.
Um, there's a scene where like there's one that like lands right next to Godzilla, and then Jaguar picks it up and throws it like a grenade in
Like
a
a
war
war
zone.
movie.
Yeah, and they get and then Godzilla and Jet Jaguar get caught in a ring of fire. Like Jet Jaguar flies Godzilla out.
Yeah. No, it's really a sight to behold. It is awesome. It seriously, like, I thought for sure this was one you would have seen as a kid, or if you were a kid and watched it, you would have really enjoyed it because it reminded me of a wrestling match. It reminded me of like a tag team wrestling match because like Jet Jaguar like pins him down, Jet Jaguar like holds him by the back, is like hit him. It feels it's good. It's fun.
And if you want to believe something, this fight scene was actually supposed to be a lot more goofier than it
Really?
was.
Wow.
Like there was supposed to be when Jet Jaguar like comes and like tells Godzilla like to come to help out.
Hmm.
Apparently Godzilla was like working out, and there's like still images of Godzilla like doing like pull-ups and
Oh my God.
like
Yes.
exercising. And
I've always wanted to know what his regiment was.
yeah, and then there's another one apparently where he's like has a tree branch and he's like swinging it around like pretending he's a samurai.
Oh,
And
come on. No, that's too good. Samurai Godzilla, that rocks.
and and he takes like an electrical pole and puts it in his mouth like a toothpick.
All right, now we're taking it too far. Okay.
That's 100% legit. That's what they were
Oh
going
man.
for.
Oh, that's
And
funny. I like that.
but yeah, it's but yeah, they they kick their asses. They kick Gigan and Megalon's asses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And both of them are just like, I don't want none of that. And like even like the Seatopian people are like, all right, fine.
It's over.
It's over. We're going away. And they
Yeah.
bury themselves back again. Uh and then of course they're friends now. And Godzilla and Jet Jaguar have a great handshake together.
Another great moment, just both of them shaking hands, like, yeah, good job, buddy.
Like
And,
Godzilla is like now mentally cognizant that he is doing a handshake and just like, and he's almost like doing like these little roars, like like he's like
uh-huh.
talking to him.
Yeah, and I mean, Godzilla, the characters come such a long way from the original '50s movie. Like, if if I had only seen that one and then hopped to this one, I'd be like, what did they do? Like, they don't even see like comparable characters at this point.
So I mean, you could kind of see where like as a kid, so I would watch something like Hedorah or uh Godzilla versus King Kong or whatever, and then like because the original Godzilla movie was like one of the last ones I saw, and it's like, can you
Mhm.
imagine like watching all that and then you go and watch that one, which again, like almost masterpiece,
Yeah.
like one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, but like I like wait, this is not Godzilla, like
This is not my Godzilla.
yeah, this
No,
one's
it
way
makes
too
sense.
serious.
Yeah, because it is like that one and its sequel are probably one of the few like serious leaning movies.
Sure.
They start to get a little more sillier. I mean, I think watching them all in a row has given me a good perspective of how it is a gradual experience
Oh
to.
yeah, I mean it's total roller coaster. Like you can just see the ascent of like just like
Yes, yeah.
comedy, funny. Like
Yeah, and now we're here. Look at us. We're here.
yeah, and if like you said before, if this movie didn't still you're not convinced is a Jet Jaguar movie, that the movie ends with a Jet Jaguar theme song with like them
Yeah.
walking into the sunset.
Jaguar. It's good. I'm gonna play it for this episode. So yeah,
Punch, punch, punch.
yeah. And I mean, I think there was something that kind of irked me about that after the movie ended. I really did. I was like, oh man, this isn't even a Godzilla movie. It doesn't even feel like it's Jet Jaguar's movie.
And you know what?
Hmm.
You never hear from Jet Jaguar again until
Oh really? I thought he was like for the next few. No.
you don't see Jet Jaguar again until 2021.
Holy crap. So if we recorded this a little bit earlier, we could have been like, oh yeah, we've never heard from him again.
No, probably not. No.
Wild.
And yeah, you don't really see him in any other movies, unfortunately. But
Hmm.
um, I which is a shame. I think he could have gotten a lot more. I think he could have gotten his own standalone movie.
I could have sworn in my mind that he did. Like he was a bigger character.
Well, there's a reason with that. So we're getting into the end. So we've talked about the movie. What
Mm,
about afterwards? How did this
mm.
stack? Well, Nathan, this is the worst performing Godzilla movie at the time.
I wonder why.
It is rock bottom. Like every Godzilla movie up to this point has sold at least 1 million tickets.
Yeah, and this one didn't even do that.
Did not do it. No, it
Wow.
is totally underperformed at the box office. Did not even in Japan. It was very disappointing because at the time the whole they went so hard into let's make this like the TV shows is that the Japanese sentiment at the time was, well, why am I going to the movie theater when I could just watch the same type of show at home?
Yeah, exactly. You weren't convincing them. I get that. Why model yourself off a TV?
Well, it'd be like, going to watch like an episode of a TV show at the theater, like we kind of talked about before jokingly,
Yes,
but
yeah.
it's like, well, why would anyone do that when you could just, I mean, like, when you go to the movies, you want to see something exceptional like that, like stuff that you wouldn't see on a TV. But
Mhm.
um, that's kind of like the sentiment of the time. It just very much underperformed, was very rarely talked about. And like I said, they were just kind of like, they went so far into cutting the quality out of a movie and trying to be economical. It suffered because of that. And
Mm.
because I mean, even Gigan, it didn't sell as many tickets as its predecessor, but because it was made so cheap, it was considered a success. And this one, it's like it was made cheap and it still didn't even uh, hit the number that they wanted to hit.
Hmm. Yeah, that's depressing. No wonder we're getting towards the end of this.
Yeah, you can kind of see the petering out a little bit, and
Mm.
but I will say this. So um, this movie kind of had a second life over in America. This movie was actually a lot more successful in America than it was in Japan.
Is that where the poster comes from that I've seen so many times of the monsters on top of the twin towers?
Yeah. So the other thing they had in the commentary was they actually interviewed one of the American producers of Cinema Share, which is the one
Mm.
that released Godzilla theatrically in America, and it's very famously Godzilla and Megalon fighting on top of the World Trade Center.
Which does not happen in the
Now,
movie.
they don't even make it to that same continent. So,
No.
uh, but at the time, they pretty much asked the guy point blank, "Is this you trying to steal some thunder from King Kong? Like, Do,
Hmm.
do you know dealer? Because this movie came out in 1976,
Okay.
so it was after, it was 3 years after it came out in Japan. So there's like, is this you trying to steal some thunder from the King Kong remake? He's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
um, and they said, and for box office wise, it actually did. They were very pleased with the numbers that they hit, and uh, it hit made about roughly about 5 million in America, which is actually good at the
Mm,
time for a movie that they didn't, have to pay any production cost to. I'm sure they would probably
yeah.
just have to pay for the rights to show it in America, so they probably made a really good profit on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Like that's a great.
yeah, and so let's get into some fun stuff though.
Okay.
How did they promote this movie?
Oh boy. They were at the local car wash handing out quarters with the name of the movie on it. Some dumb crap, I'm sure.
Now there was some fun. I mean, like there was some like actual like promotion. Like
Okay.
they had like a Godzilla footprint like in front of Madison Square Garden.
Okay, I
Uh,
like that.
uh, and also too, they were driving cars around with cardboard cutouts of Godzilla and Megalon on them. And
Okay.
but here's the wacky part about it. So um, at the time, this was during the presidential election, the one that Jimmy Carter
Okay.
ended up winning. But they were actually near the Democratic National Convention, and they were right. They hadn't chosen that, so they were handing out buttons and posters that would say Godzilla for president,
Awesome.
and handing them out to kids, balloons.
Mhm.
They had a guy in a Godzilla costume that the Big Action Bill show that looked awful. It was just like a really a really crappy looking Godzilla costume that didn't look. It was just like a cheapo dinosaur costume.
Love it.
And then when Jimmy Carter was announced as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, they on the floor of they had bikini women in bikinis chanting Godzilla for vice president.
Okay. Did Jimmy run with
Yeah, you don't
Godzilla?
remember when Godzilla one was vice president for a while?
I don't really follow politics, but I would vote for him.
That's why he had such a big break, but that's why there wasn't any movies made. He was like during his like political career.
Oh, and yeah, that makes sense. 1985. It was a few years after. It was his big comeback.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
um, some other things too. It was played on in America about 2,200 screens. Um,
That's not
Another
bad.
fact, yeah, that's actually pretty good. Um, this movie had actually a pretty high viewership turnout for the television premiere a year later,
Gotcha.
1977, which was hosted by John Belushi.
I feel like that's a good pick.
John Belushi in a Godzilla costume, which if you go back, like I was looking, like he does play like Godzilla and like a couple of SNL skits.
Okay, got you. I guess he played that baseball samurai guy as well. He's just doing all things Japan.
Oh yeah, well totally. People know John Belushi for his sensitivity.
Yeah, yeah. I know I do.
Absolutely. But um and then the last fact is like the next two movies that are in the Godzilla series, this one actually did the better of the three.
Really?
So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So definitely a hit in America, but unfortunately not really looked favorably upon in Japan at the time. So um and they even were telling like other stories about like just how big like for kids Godzilla was
Mhm.
at the time for and even in America. Like another story they shared was about Jun Fukuda was like on an airplane and he was talking to like a boy and his father, and he had
Mhm.
very limited English, and he said he was a director, and they're like, oh, what movies have you directed? And in his very limited vocabulary, he's like, oh, Godzilla. and his like the kids like eyes would like light up and like like Godzilla, and like pulled out like these Godzilla like trading cards and like
Oh my
like
God.
and like and just and I'm like, God, I wish that kid was me.
Yeah, no, I bet. No, that's actually awesome. That is absolutely insane. Could you imagine that? That's like meeting Christopher Nolan. I please, can I meet him? Or I guess the better joke would be Quentin Tarantino.
I'd be like me meeting Martin Scorsese,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'd probably be watching a Marvel movie on the plane or something if I was sitting next to him.
Yeah, right. Are you watching Shang-Chi? Are you serious? But then you're like, no, please sign my silence trading card.
I love Boxcar Bertha, I swear.
You know what? We'll cover it one day on the podcast.
But yeah, that's kind of what it is. I had a great time watching it. Like I said, it's probably upper tier movie for me. Like at this point, I know I mean, in terms like the Godzilla sequels, like of ones I would rewatch again. Like I said, I rewatched it in full like the next day, and I was still having a good time rewatching it. So
Yeah.
I I give this one, I would give this one a pretty big recommend. I mean, and knowing if you're a big Godzilla fan, if you're looking for something a little more meat on the bone, but in terms of story, can't say I would recommend it that much. I mean, but if you're looking just for a good time with giant monsters, I mean, you really can't go wrong.
No, this one was fun. I think on terms of an enjoyment level, I say check it out. It's a good time. I'd recommend it as well. I definitely had issues with it, but I think overall, just the tone and silliness of it, it kind of nullifies those negatives and makes it an all around just good time.
That's right. That's my opinion. And like, you can criticize this movie. There's plenty there to do, but
Mm-hmm.
did I have a good time? Did I enjoy myself? Yeah, and that's a good movie in my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Those are what I like to talk about here.
I'll watch the movie Stalker tomorrow.
You've been pushing off God, why am I forgetting his name?
I can't.
You've been pushing off the major foreign auteurs for a long time. No Bergman, no Tartovsky. There it is. None of
No,
that.
yeah, but
Mhm.
we'll do a Tartovsky week. That'll be a fun time.
Yeah. Oh boy, I'll definitely catch up on sleep that week.
Well, I think that's going to be it for now. It's getting really close to the end, though, Nathan. I mean,
I know.
there's literally two movies left, and I'm just giving you guys a preview right now before we go. I mean, I would really like to happen is to stretch it out a little bit longer. So we might put the last two movies on hold just for a couple months, just to maybe watch another movie or two, just to kind of fill in the gap a little bit.
Sounds good. I'm not ready for it. The end. That is the end of an era, both the show and on the show. So,
The show, I think that's going to do it for now, Nathan.
mm,
Like I said, it was a fun time, but we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming. So, what are we going to be talking about on Tuesday?
all right. On Tuesday, we're going to be taking it back a little bit. We're going to go way back into the past. We're going to be doing, yeah, we're going to take you back to the past. I don't know if this is going to suck or anything, but we are going to talk about Angels with Dirty Faces. And that is, you can find that easily accessible on the internet.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any thoughts, opinions of the podcast or anything you'd like to tell us you don't like us, why not? Send us an email over to drive-in double feature podcast at gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. And once again, don't forget to check out the Patreon at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. But until next time.
Until next time.
共に猛烈パンチゴジラとジャガーでパンチ